Hi everyone, and welcome to the afternoon part of our Futures at UA92 media event. I'm really sorry, I don't think that video worked as such and it's kind of stuck. So hopefully you can hear me okay, and we can get started as soon as possible. It looks like it's picking up at the moment, so hopefully you can hear me. I'm going to pass over very quickly to Christine if you're able to join, and hopefully my internet will start to work. Right, a mic on, Christine.
Hi.
Hi, sorry, my internet is not very good, so I want to pass over quickly to you before I completely go off, and we can get stuck into the course taste if that's okay.
That's absolutely fine. Yes, thanks, Katie. I will start sharing my screen in a sec, everyone. So hello, welcome to the afternoon session. Looking forward to hearing from you in the chat. So just bear with me a second whilst I share my screen. If you would like to, you can pop in the chat, what course it is that you're, might be interested in, whether that's sort of media, communications, journalism or sports journalism. And then we can have a little look. Okay. So hopefully you should be able to see my screen now. Big warm welcome to everyone. So I'm Christine and I'm a tutor in digital media here at UA92. So before I joined UA92, I worked as a designer at the BBC in Media City, UK. So I worked on things that's called like user experience design, so things like web and apps. And I also worked in the research and development team as well, looking at lots of different types of research and working with sort of audiences. So that's sort of my background. So I guess I'll give you a little bit of an introduction of what we're going to be doing today. So I'm going to give you a little overview of sort of some of the modules that you might cover in your first year, look at some samples of work. We've got a little activity as well, and there's plenty of opportunity for Q&A as well. So I can't see the Q&A box just yet at the moment, but I know Katie's going to be keeping an eye on that and I'll keep checking when I can. So yeah, please do pop things in the chat throughout. So our campus then. So hopefully you can see the video. Apology, maybe it's not working, but our campus is really, really well situated. So we're right next to the Old Trafford cricket ground. We're also not far from the Manchester United Football Club as well. Got a tram stop just nearby, so it's really easily accessible into Manchester. So very well located. So a bit of a course overview. So at UA92, we've got media and communications, sports journalism and journalisms as options there. And within that, there's lots of exciting different modules that we have. And I thought it might be useful just to chat over some of the things that we've got in the first year. So as a student at UA92 in media comms, journalism or sports journalism, there's some modules where you work together. So they're really multidisciplinary. The things that you learn are really sort of relevant to, whether you're a media student or a journalism student. And there's also some modules as well that are more subject specific. So when you're in your first year, you get a really lovely sort of broad overview of different sort of equipment, the different types of media and journalism, and lots of techniques really that will help to build your skills. So in the first year, the three modules that are shared are media technology and culture, media production and communication techniques and creating content. So within those, there's lots of practical skills that you'll learn as well as written skills in there, so academic work. And then we've got, more subject-specific modules as well. So I've listed those out at the bottom. So if you're a media and communications student, you'll do a module called Media and Public Relations, where we explore things like marketing, advertising, and brands, and how to communicate effectively. For Introduction to Journalism, you'll look at sort of mobile journalism and writing and how to sort of capture content using sort of equipment that you can have to hand. So we'll look at that a little bit in an activity in a bit. And Introduction to Sports Journalism. So again, looking at mobile journalism skills, but more from sort of like a sport content angle. So you get a really broad range of content that you learn. So on UA92, we have a range of media and journalism equipment. So hopefully you can see those on the screen here. So we've got equipment that's portable, so things that you can take away. So we've got things like DSLR cameras and handheld microphone kits. We also have an amazing studio as well. So we've got like a media lab where students get the opportunity to go in and use some of that equipment. So we've got some nice photographs here. So we've got sort of the gallery, which you can see in the top left corner. So that's sort of, you can control cameras and the lighting from in there, and sound. You can also see at the bottom, we've got like a BBC Breakfast type sofa in there. So students go in and use that when they're creating TV shows. And we've also got a podcasting studio as well, which students have been using. And there's some examples here of our current students that have been using the space. So we've been doing this in a COVID secure way as well during the pandemic, when we've been able to be on campus. But students really love using the space. It's really, you know, it's industry standard equipment. And students really like kind of getting hands-on and learning how to, you know, use all that different equipment. So really prepares you for skills within the working world. But students as well, you know, they'll use them for their sort of assessment work and assignments, but also as well, they might do things that are sort of extracurricular as well. So we've got a couple of students which you may hear from, or you might have seen their work. So we've got Millie and Beth that have a podcast called UA92 Insider, and they're using their skills and sort of knowledge of podcasting to do something outside of lessons. So these spaces, particularly when, you know, things get better with COVID, they're there for you to sort of use. Something else that we do as well, UA92, it's really important for us to have guest speakers from industry. So as well as staff having industry backgrounds, we get people involved to speak to you, and so you can ask questions and find out their sort of perspectives. So we've had a range of different speakers in. So we've had Phil Jones and Gary Neville. Here we've got Joe from design agency Truth that you can see there. We've also had guest speakers still during the pandemic as well. So even when students might have been able to be on campus, a guest speaker might not be able to, but we've had them kind of join virtually. So we've got Jen from Tangerine PR there as well. So we get lots of, it's really, really important for us to get in those guest speakers so you can hear from sort of media and journalism specialists, ask them questions and get their sort of perspectives. So that's something that we really do within our modules as well, as getting those guest speakers. So character development activities as well. So character and personal development is a really important part at UA92. So we do those within our modules and within sort of media and journalism, but you also have a character and personal development module as well, which, you know, you get to sort of work with different students. So it's really important to learn about things like resilience and team working, because going into sort of a media and journalism profession, it's really important that you're able to work with others, share ideas, respond to change. So it's really key that we explore those elements. So I guess just some other kind of key things about sort of media and journalism. So this might have been mentioned to you already, that we sort of work in like a block structure. So we have 5 weeks working on sort of your media and journalism or sports journalism module. And then you've got a 6-week working on character and personal development. And because you're either an AM or a PM student, you can really, really focus, and that lets you sort of balance sort of work around sort of study as well. And a lot of our students really like that they're looking at sort of one module at a time, because it really gets you to focus on understanding those sort of media and journalism skills, and really kind of getting to grips with the content, the equipment that you need to use, and it really helps you sort of, it's quite reflective of actually of working in the real world, where you might have shorter sort of time frames to work on a project. So our students really appreciate that structure, and they feel it's sort of helping them get used to the way that you'd work in a creative environment. So that's a little overview and sort of introduction to media journalism and sports journalism at UA92. So I'll hopefully get back to some questions in a bit if I can. Hopefully I'll be able to see my screen. But please do keep popping things into the chat and we can get back to you. Okay. So, an introduction to mobile journalism, or Mojo. So this is a little sort of sample activity that I'd like you to sort of get involved with, pop things in the chat as we're going along. So, mobile journalism. So by the end of this really short little mini session, you should have a good understanding of the purpose, key skills, equipment and benefits of mobile journalism. You'll look a bit at sort of the capabilities, key features of a mobile journalism kit, and debate the positives and negatives of mobile journalism as well. So Mojo, or mobile journalism, it might not have been something that you've heard of before. So it's seen as like an innovative form of reporting. So the smartphone, the things that we, rely on or use every day, we can actually use that to create and sort of film stories and make content. So quite often with mobile journalism, the stories are usually videos, but actually they can also include sort of like audio reports. So there might also be like slideshows of photos and text as well. So with a mobile phone, you can be really, really creative. So you can capture that content and you can edit it. So you might want to, pop something in the chat, but you might be thinking, well, actually, what is the best tool for a modern video journalist or a creative working within the industry? And you can see there's a few sort of examples here. So you've got like a video camera with a boom mic. You've then got in the middle a DSLR with a mic on top. And then at the end, you've got, a mobile phone to capture content. So you might have, you might have some thoughts on which you think is the best tool there. But actually, whatever equipment that you've got to hand, if you can capture that content, then that's the best tool for the job. So as well with using your mobile phone, there's a few things that you can do to sort of turn it into a powerful news gathering tool. So, you might have like a monopod, so like a tripod. You might have some sort of additional sort of audio or sound equipment. But, it's not always about kind of the cost or getting lots of things. It's just about knowing how to get the best out of your device. So your mobile phone, you've got the power to create content in your hand, so you don't always have to have anything expensive or anything big in there. So I'll just... So in 2005, there was a piece of content that won sort of the first Citizen Journalism Award, and that was a picture taken moments after an explosion. So you might think that citizen journalism is a term for sort of someone that will go out and use their mobile phone. They might not be a professional journalist, but they're capturing content. They are, they're trying to tell a story. They're trying to get something across. And it just goes to show that content that can be created by someone that's not a professional, can actually be, it can be really powerful. It can evoke change. And this was such a powerful piece that it won that first Citizen Journalism Award. So in a world where cameras are everywhere, the truth is accessible to more people. So you can, there's absolutely a range of things that you can look at and explore. So I'm just checking the chat as I go along. So yeah, the truth is accessible to more people. So certainly a way that you can, if there's something that's really important, if there's an issue that you want to raise, then there's absolutely, an opportunity to share that, particularly with sort of social media, where, you might actually follow the news quite a lot there. But I guess there's a lot about sort of the timeliness of creating a piece of content. So we've got some quotes here by Filak. So he's writes a lot about journalism. So journalists always pride themselves on getting the freshest information out to the public faster than the competition. Market changes have led print and broadcast operations to embrace digital technologies and evolving media platforms. So things have changed over time. So you might think now, if you have a think to yourself, and you might share this in the chat as well, is that actually, how do you consume your news? Do you watch the TV and watch news on there? Would you actually go out and buy a newspaper? Do you read sort of a digital publication online? Or actually, do you rely on social media? So things have really, really changed. And I guess what some of the benefits of sort of, reporting journalism via social media is actually that it can be really timely. Someone can publish something really instantaneously, and people can then follow that. Whereas something, if it's more print-based, it might be, you could be getting information about something a bit later. So there is something about kind of timeliness, but also about the appropriateness of as well of where you're publishing that content. So there's a lot of sort of importance around timing and where and when that content is published. So I've just noticed in the chat, is there an app that mobile journalists can use? So we've got quite a few here. So you might want to take a little photo of the screen maybe, so you can have a search for them later on. But one of the popular ones here is you've got Ferrite, which is the logo that's the second. So that's a really useful audio recorder that you can use on your phone, and you can do some bits of editing on it as well. So it's really useful for kind of voice memos, or for actually sort of doing an interview with someone. So you've got Big View as well, and Headliner, so you can create sort of videos and slideshows and things like that as well. So there's so many apps now. So I would really suggest doing sort of some delving on, like, there's always new ones coming up all the time, and you can, there's pros and cons to each one. So there's definitely have a look and have a play, because quite often a lot of these things are free. So you can see with Headliner, that's completely free. So have a play, like, say you've got your phone, maybe it's that you can, we're talking here about mobile journalism and creating content, but you can even just have a play in sort of, your own space at trying some of these apps out and, seeing how they work. So there's definitely loads of different apps out there, and some journalists will prefer more of using one than another. But yeah, definitely take a screenshot of that, take a photo, and go away and explore some of those as well, and see how they work on your phone. So I've got an example here. So this one was made with KineMaster of a video slideshow. So there's some footage kind of compiled. I'm hoping that you can see this, I think, with the Zoom. So that's just a sample, and that's something that one of our students made, and that just that was all created and edited on a mobile phone. So there's a series of photographs and footage there compiled together with a text overlay, and you can imagine something like that being shared on Twitter. So something with like a slideshow like that with the captions, that's, if someone's not got audio, so you could have background music playing on that, but if you've not got audio, you're still getting the same essence and information from that video or slideshow. So it's really, your phone is a really powerful tool. There's so much that you can do with that. And being able to edit all that just on your mobile phone without having to send it to a computer or something like that means that you're being sort of really efficient with your workflow and making the best of that mobile phone capability. But there's lots of things to remember when we're thinking about creating content or mobile journalism on your mobile phone. So, just having, a really good quality mobile phone doesn't make you sort of a trained journalist. Like there's, it's great to kind of go out there, but you need to make sure that you're safe, that everything that you're doing is legally sound. And there's a lot about sort of like ethics. So, really thinking about before you go and capture something, is that the right thing to do? Ethically, is that ethically sound? Are there things and are there questions I need to be asking here? So you need to understand as well what the sort of the conventions of journalism are. So what are the key things that you need to do? Is you need to tell a story, so it's got to have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you need to make sure that you kind of understand the best practices of journalism before you try doing something completely different or breaking them. But ultimately, you need to change how you see your mobile phone. So quite often with a mobile phone, you're using it for, well, you might often using it for sort of like entertainment or communicating with people. But I suppose you would be seeing this more as sort of like a tool to help you tell stories or create content and send a message. So you're seeing it in a slightly different way. So you're seeing it as a tool that's kind of got the power to, tell something important. So there's quite a few things to remember there and consider when you're doing a piece of mobile journalism. So feel free to pop things in the chat as well, actually, here if there's some items that you think could be missing. I'll check the chat again shortly after this little section. So there's plenty of benefits of mobile journalism and content creation on your phone. So you've got most of the equipment already, so what can you do with it? Really kind of push the boundaries of what you can do with a mobile phone. You can broadcast live as well. So I guess there's quite a lot of things with like Instagram live. You can do things live on Facebook, but also in many other means as well. You're mobile, so you've not got big sort of heavy equipment. You can take your mobile phone anywhere, you can capture something. And it's quite discreet as well, actually. So if we're thinking about safety, sometimes if you've got quite a lot of equipment with you, so like a big video camera and a boom mic, it might be that you're more obvious. So we'd always say that you should always be with someone. But if you've got a mobile phone, it's a bit more discreet. So you're not shouting out that you've got loads of equipment. And with phones, like the technology is always constantly improving, and you'll find that sort of like the microphone quality on your phone is like, it's great. Like it's so much better than something on your computer. So there's so much you can do with it. But there's also lots of disadvantages as well that we can think about. So I guess there's a thing about digital divide. So we're talking, of course, with mobile phones that the technology is constantly improving, but actually, there could be an affordability thing there as well. So, some phones will have more capabilities than others. So it might be that we're thinking about, okay, not everyone's got access to that. And then batteries on phones as well. Quite often they can drain really easily. So you can buy the extra sort of like battery packs and things. But again, can you change your battery? Can you afford to sort of get those extra things? I think one of the big ones, and I'm sure most people will probably, find that they've run out of space on their device. So we talked before about seeing your phone in a different way. We have so much stuff on there, like screenshots of things we've taken, the GIFs or like, images and things that must have, hundreds, thousands of photos on there. And you need to make sure you've got enough space on your device. So if you're taking sort of a video and capturing content, and then, you've not got enough space and then it stops recording, that could be, that could sort of impacts on the project that you're creating. So it's really important to make sure that you've got enough space on your device. A mobile signal, is that good enough? So there might be some areas around the country. So maybe if you're doing something more in like the countryside or a rural area, perhaps the mobile signal isn't as strong as you would expect. So that could impact the ability to sort of broadcast live, maybe. So it might be that you'd have to record something and then transmit that later. And we've already talked a bit about safety. Is it safe to work alone? So we always encourage students on projects to work in pairs or trios, and to look out for each other and be safe. So making sure that that your environment is a safe place to be in, and that someone knows where you are. And with any sort of technology that might be new, sometimes Mojo can be quite challenging or fiddly. So on that slide before, I showed you there's loads of different apps, and quite often some of them are free. There's going to be things that might work better on some apps than others, or there might be something that doesn't quite go right the first time. So there's a lot of trial and error involved with sort of capturing content on a mobile device. So it's really important to sort of keep practicing and keep trying things out and to see how that goes. So if you think there's any other advantages or disadvantages, then please pop that in the chat. But the golden rule really for when you are sort of recording content, if you don't need to sort of broadcast live, keep your phone in sort of airplane mode. It's the example here of Jose Mourinho. His phone started ringing in the press conference. So it's really important to make sure you've not got loads of notifications and things going on your screen whilst you're taking content. So I'm just going to check the chat before we go into the examples of student works. There might be some bits that I've already answered. Will we have had to have experience of mobile journalism before starting at UA92? No, you don't need to have, if you've not studied media or journalism or sports journalism before, that's absolutely fine. Like we have a mix of students, so some students that have never done things before, some people that might have done a bit, and all that you'll learn everything throughout your modules, so you'll really build those skills. So if you want to have a play, so we'd always encourage you to have a play around with some technology in your own time, but you don't need to have had any experience at all. So mobile journalism, we'd cover that in the Introduction to Journalism or Introduction to Sports Journalism course, module, sorry, and as well for the media students, you'll get opportunities to use that equipment too. So you don't worry. Let's say you can be completely new to these subjects, and you'll get all sort of like the knowledge and practice over the course of the different modules. And what else we got? So we've got, since it's a very hands-on subject, will there be any written exams throughout? So in media journalism, sports journalism, we don't have any exams. However, there's a mix of different assessment types. That's a really good question there. So some modules are more practical based. So it might be that you might work as a group, for example, maybe to create a video piece or a podcast or a magazine or a TV show. So you might work together, and that's practical, and we're looking at sort of the technical skills and your scripting and the content and the writing. There'll also be written, some modules might have written assessments as well in there. So some of those might be, some of the journalism students might write a journalistic piece. So it could be a short form or a long form article, for example, or it could be an academic written piece. So we might ask you to do things like essays or reports. We really ask you to sort of research and dig into a topic using kind of, we've got like an online library and looking for sort of industry sources as well. So there might be sort of individual reports, there could be group reports. There's also kind of reflective pieces as well, where you look at your own sort of skills and reflect on them and where you'd like to improve. So there's so many different assessment types that we have in media journalism and sports journalism. So there's mix of practical, a mix of written, and a mix of academic assessments there. So hopefully that works well with that. So we've got another question about approaching people when it comes to sort of mobile journalism. So what we encourage our students to do is we always encourage people to do a bit of a risk assessment of what it is that they're doing. So if you kind of go online, you can Google, you might find the risk assessment. And even if it's something that you're doing as sort of a personal project, I'd really, encourage you to consider, okay, what are the risks? What do I need to do to make sure that I'm safe? If you're wanting to sort of film someone or do a bit of an interview, for example, someone that you might approach on the street, you need to be sort of clear about what it is that you're doing. Quite often you might have like sort of like little consent forms that you take. If you're just doing sort of general sort of, shots of sort of, just people walking around in sort of like a street, things like that, that might be a bit different. So there's lots of great sort of guides online about what you can and can't do when you're sort of filming or creating content in the public. But if you are wanting to sort of get sort of insight from someone, if it's kind of that they're going to be on camera or you're going to take a photo of them, for example, then you need to get their consent. If it's just something done verbally and you're taking notes and it's going to be anonymous, it could be something you do a bit of a verbal agreement on. There's so many ethics and things around it, but we cover all that at UA92 as well. So we talk about risk assessments and getting consent and knowing sort of your rights as well. So it's a really interesting topic to look into online as well. But we cover all that content as well in your modules. So hopefully that covers those questions. Keep popping things in the chat and I'll get back to them as well. Some great contributions there. So some examples of student work. So I've just got a few little bits and bobs here to show. So in this example from a module that you're doing first year called media production, students create their own website and they then sort of create content, so visuals and a video piece, and they share that and showcase that online. So in your first year, you get the opportunity to create your own little portfolio of work that you can then sort of show when you're sort of, going looking for jobs, things like that. And it's a really nice way of showcasing all the things and content that you've done. So all the students, journalism, media, sports journalism will have the opportunity to learn how to create a website and how to kind of pick content to pull onto there as well. So students really enjoy this module, particularly as you can put your own sort of personal stamp as well on the website and start building your own personal brand as well. So on the website, they've put examples of photography and video work, and they really sort of curate this site, so showing all their best skills off. In another first year module called Communication Techniques and Creating Content, students work in multidisciplinary groups to create something and then showcase it. Here we've got examples of like magazines. So students worked together in a magazine and did all the photography and all the articles in it and conducted interviews. On the right, we've got an example of a TV show, an interview that was taking place called The Morning Grind. We also sort of showcased the work in a sort of mini exhibition format as well, which the students really enjoyed and appreciated. I think what students really appreciated about this module is when they were working as a group, they could really find a topic that they were sort of passionate about, research it, find contacts to interview, really explore the photography. So students really enjoyed this, and it really showed in the pieces that they exhibited as well. But as well as content that are created for assessments, our students have been doing great with getting sort of work experience. So we work with a journalist called Kevin Palmer, who sort of runs some sort of little Zoom calls and discusses about sort of like articles and things that are coming up. So Kevin Palmer is a journalist, and he's got connections with lots of different sort of online publications. And in the first year, many of our students got their first byline, so they wrote an article and they got their name published on the online on the web. And this was such a really exciting opportunity, and the students really enjoyed it because they were getting the opportunity to write for an online publication like Independent IE, Planet Rugby, so we have Female First as well, amongst many others as well. So there is sort of opportunities there, and students keep sort of going for this content and writing different types of articles. And this isn't just journalism students that have taken up this opportunity. We've had media students write articles as well and get their byline. So there's students really appreciate this, especially writing for lots of different types of publications or different themes and doing different interviews. So it's really great to see. This is just a small sample of some of the articles that students have written. So that's me. So thanks for listening to that, and I guess we're open now to a bit of Q&A and wrap up for a few minutes. Just stop sharing a second.
Thanks, Christine. That was really good. I know that we've had quite a few questions in the chat that you've already answered, but I know that a question that I always get asked is kind of that that link to industry as well. What type of links to industry do we have for media and communications, but also journalism, that can really kind of help our students kind of build their CV and build their network once they kind of graduate from UA92?
Yeah, so in media and communication, over the summer break, we worked closely with Jo from Truth. So I mentioned that she did a little, that she does guest talks with us. So she works for a branding agency, and she ran a little sort of a live brief that some of our media and comms students got involved with. So it was about kind of creating content that would sort of appeal to student base. So Jo gave lots of like feedback. So there was sort of a brief, the students would work to it. We'd have sort of regular catch-ups and debriefs, so kind of understanding what it's like to share work within a creative environment. And Jo gave lots of sort of hands-on advice on how to sort of improve and refine. And the students really appreciated like working on, like infographics, blogs, things that would sort of really appeal to the brief and the target audience that Jo asked for. So I think working to a brief with kind of like a client and someone that's got a really strong kind of, knowledge and understanding of branding was really sort of key for these students. And they can use those pieces within sort of their portfolios as well, and show that going forward. So there's lots of kind of, with our guest speakers as well, they're always really keen to kind of take Q&A and things and give sort of advice as well on how they can sort of, refine their work and things going forward. So yeah, that was a really a great opportunity our students enjoyed. In regards to sort of journalism students and sports journalism, so I mentioned that about Kevin Palmer. So with the getting those articles and things published, so that's usually really ongoing all the time. So Kevin's great. He's always really willing to give sort of content, encourage people to write things. So that's ongoing, which is fantastic. Other things that we've got going on as well is we really encourage sort of extracurricular things. So I mentioned about Millie and Beth's UA92 Insider podcast. So we always encourage kind of extracurricular. But we also have the UA92 Insider sort of blog as well. And so students have got the opportunity to sort of write on there, and then they can shout about that and use that towards sort of like their career as well, and kind of showcase that in a portfolio. So there's lots of things that are going on, and I'm sure I've missed things off there, but they're just some of the ones that have come to mind right now.
Yeah, because it's definitely really important for students kind of now, if they're watching, if they're like in year 12, year 13, to kind of really start to hone those skills before they kind of start university, start their degree, so that their skills are constantly being kind of created and worked upon. Victoria's asked, will I have access to the recording? You definitely will. By the end of the week, we should have all these recordings on YouTube, so I can send you all the links for any of the sessions that you guys will have missed. One final question for yourself, Christine. Obviously, this whole week is based on National Careers Week, and I know that before UA92, you worked for the BBC. What type of job did you do there? And then again, second part of the question is, what type of skills do you think students need to start with now to be able to work in those types of industries?
Okay, so I'll answer the first part of the question. At the BBC, my title was User Experience Designer, and you might be thinking that sounds like a really fancy title. So what a user experience designer does is it's sort of a focus on kind of design for web or for apps. So the BBC have loads of different sort of websites and apps, but it's not just about creating the design, it was understanding how users would navigate through a website. So what are they thinking? What are they feeling? Why are they interacting with something in quite a way? So it's really kind of digging down into sort of the behaviors that people have, and then sort of responding to that, and then creating something that would delight them, or, you know, get them to where they need to be. So it's not just about designing a website. There's actually a lot of kind of research and digging and kind of background information in there that you have to work with. So it's a really interesting discipline. But I guess, you know, sometimes you might the creative industry is such a huge industry. And I think, you know, studying media and comms and journalism at UA92, you get so many different kind of skills, which is great. But I think, I suppose, some of the key skills, I think that, you know, if you want a creative media or journalism career, I guess it's that willingness to want to question things is my thing, and sort of like not just see something as what it is. It's being able to kind of want to dig deeper, wanting to explore, asking questions. And I think that's the key. It's really kind of, you know, being keen to sort of dig into something and find out more. So I think that, and a willingness just to learn and try things out and experiment. So there's always, you know, technology is changing all the time, but just try something out. And I think being willing to try, and then even if something doesn't go okay, going, well, okay, that might not have worked, but what have I learned from that? So yeah, so I would say, you know, being able to question, being inquisitive, wanting to try things, and just, yeah, it's okay if you don't know exactly what area of sort of media or journalism you want to go into, but just trying things out, and then that will kind of steer you. So my career's changed a little bit over time from different things. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
No, thank you. But I think that's what we found doing, because obviously we've had media today, and yesterday we had business, and obviously business and media, there are a few kind of bits and pieces that will cross over, but they are quite different kind of disciplines and industries. And speaking to our industry leaders that support our UA92 students, a lot of them have had very varied careers. So, but they've found those transferable skills in each and every job, and they've kind of threaded that through. So for every single job, you need to have great communication skills, teamwork skills, resilience, like those types of skills that you can hone in part-time jobs. So I worked at McDonald's when I was in college and in university, and those skills that I learned then, I use now. Those skills that I learned dealing with tricky customers, I use day to day, although I don't have tricky customers or tricky students, because all the students and the academics here are brilliant, but I still use those kind of people management skills all the time. So I think what we're finding this careers week is that it's okay if you don't know what you want to do right now. That's fine. I'm personally like that. I'm just I'm finding my way through kind of my career at the moment, but pick those skills up, hone them, be the best that you can be, and the job opens and the industry will open up for you as you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, would totally agree. And just to pick up on that point about like teamwork and communication skills, so important within a creative industry. And I guess not being precious about an idea and being willing to kind of, you know, get input and share, because that's part of the exciting process, seeing how things develop. So yeah, all these key skills are just so important regardless of the kind of industry you want to go in. But yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Christine. I know we've got Sophie waiting, so we'll go on to the next session very quickly. But if anyone has any further questions for Christine, pop them in the chat and I'll be sure to send them her way, or I can answer them myself during the next session. But thank you so much for Christine. I hope to see you very soon.